Robert Wagner asked me if I would identify her body because he didn't want to. It was the eeriest feeling I've ever had in my life. To look at her laying there.
The investigation surrounding Natalie Wood's demise has exhausted all leads, but a recent revelation has just been made. Although actress Natalie Wood shot to stardom at 16, her tragic end at age 43 left many to question the circumstances surrounding her fatal ending for decades. It is nearly 40 years since film icon Natalie Wood drowned off the coast of California's Catalina island. But is her demise still tagged as an accident? Or, with more passing time, have there been answers to the questions that have persisted about what really happened that night? Join us as we uncover the mysteries behind what exactly happened to Natalie.
Natalie was 43, which is a somewhat dangerous age for actresses in Hollywood.
A glittering Hollywood star. The baffling death of Natalie Wood has, in many aspects, stayed within the mind space of citizens and prompted the production of umpteen books and television series. Iconic star of the golden age in Hollywood, Wood was acclaimed for her marvelous acting talent. Sadly, on November 30th, 1981, Natalie Wood was found dead in the icy waters off Catalina Island, some distance from a small boat tied to the side of the Splendor. Then it was left for family, friends, and fans to deal with the overpowering grief. Many unanswered questions were flying throughout Hollywood. Amidst the grief, a somber farewell was given to her at the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, where even some of the biggest names in entertainment, such as Frank Sinatra, Elizabeth Taylor, and the legendary director Elia Kazan, turned up to pay respect to the departed talent. Similarly, old colleagues remembered Natalie Wood's genius, her uncommon knack for exuding both power and fragility on screen. Sidney Pollack, director of many classic movies, now calls her one of the sensational actresses, underrated on many occasions, just because she happened to be a movie star and pretty. She had a combination of vulnerability and a kind of aura, he says. The mystery surrounding Natalie Wood's final moments has always been the official ruling, which says accidental drowning, with the speculation of investigators suggesting she must have fallen into the water as she tried to secure the small boat. Yet to many, that never made much sense. Wood was a lifelong aquaphobe who had an inordinate fear of deep water. Decades later, a haunting question mark over the life of a star whose light was extinguished far too soon. Would she have voluntarily placed herself in such a precarious position? Or was there another hint of what could have happened that night? The mysterious end. On the night of November 29, 1981, Hollywood star Natalie Wood was on the yacht Splendor, moored off the coast of California's Catalina Island. She had spent the evening drinking and socializing with her husband, actor Robert Wagner, and her Brainstorm co-star, Christopher Walken. What started out as an apparently convivial evening turned dark. Tensions flared between the two men, reportedly over Wagner's increasing jealousy of the close friendship that Wood shared with Walken. Their disagreement bloomed into a heated argument, and at some point, Natalie left them. Wagner reported that later that evening, he went to bed believing his wife had taken the yacht's small dinghy out onto the water, which he said she had done previously. But an alarm set in as time passed, and she didn't return. Wagner's spokesman said he waited about 10 to 15 minutes before calling the harbor patrol. Tragically, Natalie Wood's body was found the following morning at 8 a.m., face down in the icy Pacific waters, mile from Splendor. The yacht's dinghy washed up on shore, eerily empty, nearby. The circumstances of her demise immediately set off speculation. A post-mortem report revealed some disturbing details. Natalie Wood had multiple bruises on her arms and body and an abrasion on her left cheek, But after a scant 2-week investigation, the coroner's official finding was that of accidental drowning. Under this ruling, it was likely that Natalie Wood, who had been drinking, became unsteady trying to get into the dinghy and drowned. Still, from the very first days of Natalie's demise, many friends and followers of the actress-turned-politician found this explanation hard to swallow. After all, the one-time actress had a well-documented lifelong fear of deep water, making it nearly impossible to believe that she would have gone out alone that fateful night. Adding to the mystery, a woman on a neighboring boat came forward to claim she had indeed heard a woman crying for help during the night that Natalie vanished. In the intervening years, the tragic demise of Natalie Wood only deepened the mystery, and it remains firmly lodged in the public's imagination. However, what other investigation was carried out so as to know what actually occurred that night on board the Splendor? A cold case reignited. It has been more than 3 decades since the untimely demise of Natalie Wood. Yet a stunning development reignited public intrigue. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department announced in November 2011 that it was reopening its investigation into Wood's demise because new information had come to light. In its statement, it referred obliquely to individuals who had provided new information about what happened on the night of her demise. Among those speaking out was Dennis Davern, captain of Splendor the night Natalie disappeared. In a televised interview, he recounted disturbing memories that had haunted him for decades. As Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken argued, he said that tension had filled the yacht that night. When an angry Wagner smashed a wine bottle, Natalie, visibly upset, had excused herself from the fight. But Wagner had followed her, and what transpired next, Davern would claim, was a moment that altered everything. He remembered how, as the night wore on, it became apparent that Natalie was missing. But instead of immediately launching a search, an eerie inertia settled over those on board. There had been no crazed scramble to scan the waters, no desperate calls for help. The yacht's searchlights were not turned on, and the authorities were not called in at once. Davern's voice was thick with regret, as he admitted more could have been done to aid Natalie, although he drew the line at naming a man he felt was responsible for Natalie's demise. Wagner's camp responded quickly and measuredly. The actor, they maintained, had always supported the investigation, but they warned against giving credence to the words of someone who, they hinted, might be trying to cash in on the renewed publicity surrounding Natalie's tragic demise. Meanwhile, Walken had not wavered in his story and wasn't one to talk much about it. Asked years prior about the events of that night, he had fielded speculation with a flip of the wrist. He'd gone to bed, he said, before Wood went missing. He said it was a terrible tragedy, but one he didn't want to revisit. Then, in August 2012, the investigation took an eerie turn. The official story, so long acquiesced to by the public, was quietly rewritten. Natalie Wood's demise certificate, which had long ruled that her passing was the result of accidental drowning, was amended to include drowning and other undetermined factors as the cause, an ominous phrase leaving more questions than answers. It remained unclear exactly what had precipitated her tumble into the water. The report allowed. With each passing year, the mystery of Natalie Wood's final hours only deepened, forever making her name synonymous with a night covered in secrecy. But was that the end of the investigation? Another dramatic turn. The case took another dramatic turn almost 4 decades after Natalie Wood's demise. In February 2018, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department named Robert Wagner, now 88 years old, and a person of interest in the ongoing investigation, as an official suspect. The revelation was surprising and revealed speculation about the actress's final hours. At a news conference, Lieutenant John Carina summed up suspicions that had lingered for years. The long-held explanation that Wood had gone out alone in the dead of night, dressed only in her nightgown and socks, trying to take the dinghy to shore in rough seas and near zero visibility, now seemed far-fetched. "I think before we were all believing this story," Carina told reporters. "But when you really think about it, it makes absolutely no sense." More questioning came from Detective Ralph Hernandez, who spoke unequivocally to CBS News' 48 Hours, pointing to bruises visible in the autopsy results, which he maintains looked fresh at the time she went into the water, raises the very alarming possibility that she had been harmed just prior to entering the ocean. "She looked like the victim of an assault," he declared. Yet, for all the new suspicions, uncertainty still clouded the case. In fact, Hernandez admitted, they have not been able to prove this was a homicide and still haven't been able to prove that the incident was an accident either. The ultimate problem is they don't know how she ended up in the water. Wagner himself continued to deny any culpability in his wife's demise, insisting that her passing was simply a tragic accident. Amid all the speculation, there was at least one constant voice in his defense. Natalie's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner. What has she said, and what has been her stand on the whole matter? Conflicting voices on the tragic end. With so many theories relating to Natalie Wood's demise circulating, arguments over the circumstances of her demise started splitting up her own family over the years. It became quite evident in time between those believing the official story and those who didn't believe. Her eldest daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, who grew up under her stepfather, Robert Wagner, never once strayed away from believing her mother's demise to be nothing less than an accidental one. She recalls the last moments with Wood before boarding the Splendor, a picture, she says, that has stayed with her through the years. In a 2016 interview, Natasha disclosed that she had been hugging her mom, telling her how much she loved her and wishing her a great trip. She remembers her mother was wearing a soft Angora sweater. Natasha remembered whispering the simple plea for her mother not to go. Even years later, Natasha stood by Wagner, denying the accusations that had circulated. In her 2020 documentary, Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind, she confronted the rumors directly, calling them outrageous and totally unacceptable. With conviction, she said that if her mother was ever in any kind of danger, Wagner would have given his life for her, something she believed as strongly as she knew her own name. Wagner himself rarely spoke publicly about the case, but in a 2020 interview, he revealed how his daughter felt. He reassured reporters that Natasha knew he would never have hurt her mother. Speaking to the Mirror in 2016 about those intervening years after Wood's demise, he reflected on how he had tried to keep the memory of his wife alive for their daughter, but said the loss left them all shattered. Their youngest daughter, Courtney Wagner, also spoke out in support of her father. In 2020, she finally opened up about how the perpetual speculation had so deeply affected her, telling people she was angry at the allegations. She said it felt so disrespectful, and no matter how long the rumors had gone on, she still couldn't believe such false things were being printed about her dad. Yet, while Wagner's children have defended him, Natalie Wood's younger sister, Lana Wood, has taken a very different stance. Publicly, she has questioned the official explanation of her sister's demise for years. In 2021, she published Little Sister, My Investigation into the Mysterious Demise of Natalie Wood, laying out her suspicions and personal search for answers. Unlike Natasha and Courtney, Lana always believed Natalie's demise was no accident, and her book became another voice in the chorus of those who questioned what really happened on that dark, stormy night in 1981. And now, as ever, the gulf between the closest people to Natalie Wood over her final hours remains as vast as ever. One side wishing to lay the tragedy to rest, the other unwilling to let remaining doubts fade into silence. Anyways, with all the declaration of love and loyalty, who exactly is Wagner? Drama and love affairs. Natalie Wood's career remains brilliant and infinitely interesting to fan magazines and Hollywood insiders alike. With a beloved starlet needing to navigate a world of highbrow romances, whispered love affairs, and stormy relationships, each new chapter added to her legend. During the years, Natalie Wood's name was romantically linked with a number of the era's most iconic figures. She dated actor Dennis Hopper and hotel heir Nicky Hilton, though even the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis Presley, was reputedly infatuated with her. However, her whirlwind romance with Robert Wagner truly captured the public eye. Wagner and Natalie got married in 1957 when she was just 18. 8 years her senior, they had a very glamorous image, a staple for the Hollywood fan magazines, whereby their every move was chronicled and drooled over. Little did anyone realize at that time that little fissures were appearing beneath the fairy tale glossy photographs and headlines. By 1962, the fairy tale romance was over, and the couple had quietly parted company. Natalie began another highly publicized romance with rising star actor Warren Beatty. But all professional success notwithstanding, Natalie struggled with personal demons. By 1966, she had reached a breaking point emotionally. Even after years of therapy, she plunged deep into despair and, in a moment of overwhelming pain, attempted to take her own life through a drug overdose. The incident was a kind of wake-up call, and it shook her enough to give up on Hollywood and concentrate on getting better. A new chapter began in 1969 when she married the British writer and producer Richard Gregson. Their union brought a semblance of stability, and the couple welcomed their daughter Natasha in 1970. Natalie's joy was short-lived, however. By 1972, another unforeseen event shook her life. Her marriage to Gregson broke down and ended in a second divorce for Wood. In a shocking turn of events, Natalie soon found herself being pulled back to the man who once was the love of her life. She rekindled with Wagner, and in 1972, they married each other once again. Natalie Wood seems to decide where family will become more important than fame this time. Their daughter Courtney was born in 1974, and for the remainder of her life, she seemed to embrace more subdued living, limiting her ceaseless works of Hollywood to devote herself to her husband and children. Though their second marriage endured, it was not without its challenges. Passion, jealousy, and unreconciled tensions were always at the doorstep. Yet outwardly, Wagner and Natalie maintained all appearances of their devotion toward family. That is, until the fateful night in 1981, when all changed. But what was Natalie Wood's life like before the unfortunate demise? A life in film. Natalie Wood's Hollywood career began long before she could grasp the weight of the spotlight. Natalia Nikolaevna was born on July 20, 1938, in San Francisco, the daughter of Russian immigrants with big plans for her future. Her mother, Maria, a relentless and intense woman, enrolled young Natalie in ballet lessons and, with persistent force, arranged for her to be introduced into Hollywood society. At the tender age of 4, Wood made her screen debut in Happyland in 1943, in a fleeting yet portentous role that would lead her to superstardom. According to Natalie herself, her mother's direction had been unequivocal. Make Mr. Pichel Love You. The director, Irving Pichel, was smitten, and before long, the raven-haired, doe-eyed youngster with a ready charm on camera found herself in films that warmed the cockles of viewers' hearts. By 1946, she was charming audiences as an orphan in Tomorrow is Forever, holding her own against the greats of Claudette Colbert and Orson Welles. 1 year later, at the tender age of 9 years, Natalie took up her first starring role in Miracle on 34th Street. Her portrayal of a doubting young girl questioning the existence of Santa Claus turned the film into a holiday classic and solidified her as a bona fide child star. As Natalie progressed from child roles to more mature parts, she found herself afloat on the mercurial tides of Hollywood. At 16, Wood landed the part that would seal her reputation as an icon of teenage rebellion in American cinema, Judy in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, opposite James Dean and Sal Mineo. Delivering a raw and vulnerable performance, Natalie became a troubled adolescent, screaming for love and understanding. The movie was a ground-shaking adaptation of teenage angst, speaking to an entire generation. Natalie received her first Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. Even with the praise, she wasn't always in control of her career. As a contract actress, she was sometimes forced into roles that didn't resonate with her. One of her least favorite projects was The Searchers in 1956, a John Wayne Western in which she played a white girl abducted and raised by Native Americans, a role she felt miscast in. But Natalie persevered, determined to prove she was more than just a pretty face in Hollywood. In addition, in the early 1960s, she was one of the most in-demand leading ladies in the industry. In Splendor in the Grass. In 1961, she was opposite Warren Beatty in an impassioned, emotionally charged story of love and repression. Her performance as the young woman spinning into madness over lost love was hauntingly powerful, of such depth and range that it should have silenced any lingering doubts about her ability. The next year, she stole the audience's hearts all over again with West Side Story, playing Maria in the classic musical version of Romeo and Juliet. Broadway's Marni Nixon may have provided her singing voice, but Wood's gentle ways and subtle acting made the movie a cultural touchstone. Her role in Gypsy in 1962 was almost autobiographical, a young girl pushed into the spotlight by a domineering stage mother, forced to grow up too fast. It was a story she knew all too well. Though Natalie's career flourished, her personal life often mirrored the melodrama of her films. Her first marriage to actor Robert Wagner in 1957 was a Hollywood dream, until it wasn't. After the couple's divorce in 1962, Natalie endured years of personal turmoil, including a botched end-of-life attempt in 1966. However, by the 1970s, fate brought them back together, and the two remarried in 1972. The second time around, Natalie put family before fame and focused on raising their daughters, with only sporadic acting appearances. By 1981, she had largely retired from Hollywood's limelight, although she still worked with Wagner in the TV series Switch and Heart to Heart. That year, she was also at work on what would prove to be her last film, the science fiction thriller Brainstorm. Sadly, Natalie Wood never lived to see the film finished. Her sudden and shocking end to life stopped production in its tracks, and when Brainstorm was finally released in 1983, its ending had been rewritten. Natalie Wood's younger sister, Lana, with whom she had a complicated relationship, stood in for some of her final scenes. The movie was dedicated to her memory. Again, What legacy are there to remember Natalie Wood for? Legacy. Natalie Wood's legacy, for all her astonishing career, has always been overshadowed by the mystery surrounding her untimely death. While speculation about that fatal night in 1981 continues, those closest to her have insisted that the true measure of her life should not be confined to its tragic ending. Her daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, says she wants to shift focus away from the circumstances of her mother's demise and put the emphasis on the fullness of her life. In her documentary, Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind, she said she wanted to pay homage to her mother, not as a tragic figure, but as a complicated, resilient, artistic woman. She has spoken about how her mother's demise had shattered the world around her, and how in the years since, the focus on the actress's last days had all too often eclipsed the person that she was. However, in both the documentary and her memoir, More Than Love, Natasha described Wood as someone who longed to be more than merely a movie star. She has portrayed herself as a struggling artist, brave yet satisfied. She has said she believes her mother should be remembered for more than the rumors about her demise, for a life of intensity and brilliance. Anyway, how important is Wagner in solving the mystery of what really happened that night aboard Splendor? Do you think the media scrutiny surrounding Natalie Wood's end will continue shaping her legacy? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.